Welcome to Regulate This, a really unfiltered podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Regulate This, a really unfiltered podcast. This is your host, Leila Shaver, and I've got my co-host here, Tracy Bear. Tracy, say hello.
Hello, everybody. So glad to be talking to you again today. On today's episode, we're going to have some fun. We're heading into the spooky months with Halloween. So one of the things that I thought might be kind of interesting is to just lay out some horror stories. And don't worry, if any of these resonate with you or you think that could be me or I've done something similar, don't worry, we're here for you. You can find us on not only this podcast on Spotify or Apple or so on and so forth, but find us on YouTube. We have so many wonderful videos there that can walk you through things. If you first want to take the plunge into just seeing what information we have out there without speaking to someone, if you actually need to speak to someone, go to our website, www.myralawyer.com, and fill out a form. Get on our calendars. Let us figure out what's going on. So this is not to scare you or make you curl up in a corner in your closet in the fetal position and cry. This is more so to tell you we've been through it, we've heard it, we've done it, we've seen it. And there are paths forward. So don't worry about where you're at. Let's worry about where you want to go. So with that, let's turn over to Leila Shaver and hear some of the things that she's had an opportunity to work on with clients, or even here when she's at conferences and people are brave enough to raise their hand and share something that's going on in their neck of the woods. So Leila, tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've run into recently that has given you a little heartburn or has made one eyebrow perk up because it leads to more questions than answers.
Well, Tracy, fortunately for you and everyone listening here today, I've worked at enough dysfunctional places to definitely have a little storage container of crazy stories. But also in just working with clients, with RAs through the law firm, my RA lawyer, we've definitely have seen our share of unusual circumstances, or to your point, circumstances that certainly cause heartburn. And they certainly fall on a spectrum, right? So, where do I start is where I'm trying to think, because there's so many stories. I think a good place to start, which I think at the end of the day is the basis for a lot of concern with regulators, is how are you compensated? Right? How are you as the firm, how are you as the advisor compensated? And to that point, how is that being reported in your financial statement? So in your SEC or state audits, they're going to ask for balance sheets, P&Ls, profit and loss statements, your journal, right, of transactions. And they're going to be looking at money in, money out. Who is it coming from? Who is it going to? Is there a basis for this transaction? So for example, if you are doing business with your affiliates, right? You've got an RA, but you also have an insurance affiliate. Maybe you have a CPA affiliate. Making sure there's agreements in place between the affiliated entities so there's a basis for that money movement. That's something that regulators are going to look at. Now that's like on the spectrum of like benign issues to crazy, holy shit. That's more on the benign, right? Things that are easier to fix, right? You just put in an agreement in place. Otherwise, you're able to show this is an affiliate entity and this is why it's being compensated. Looking at the categories that are listed on your financial statements, and I think this is why it's really important to work with a bookkeeper that's familiar with the security space or the financial services space. This came up during an audit where there was a P&L that was reviewed, and instead of advisory fees, the accountant had put commissions. And as all of those who are listening know, the advisory space is not commission transaction-based compensation. It's ongoing asset management. So it's an ongoing percentage generally of assets that you're charging as a fee. So this was a point of deficiency that came up with the examiner. So from a compliance perspective, we talk about access and treating the CCO like the C-suite level member they are. They need to have access to these financial documents to look at those kinds of things. Now, if we were to look at the oh shit side of the spectrum in terms of crazy stories, I was working with a firm, and very shortly after we started working with them, they had an SEC audit initiated. And of course, we get the audit list. I'm the CCO. And one of the items that's requested are financial documents. Go figure. I asked the owner for financial documents. Oh, so-and-so is going to get it to you. Follow up with them. Oh, I'll get it to you. The owner is not the CEO. There's a separate CEO. Followed up with her. Oh, we'll get it for you. Month goes by. 2 months goes by. Gotten the SEC, everything else. Go to the onsite. I was pregnant. I took a 5-hour flight to California. I was pregnant, showed up, did the onsite. They asked about the financial statements. Owner's there. Yeah, we're going to get it. Another month goes by. No financial documents. Why? Why am I not getting financial documents? Then the CEO died. That was really interesting dealing with that. Okay. Then the owner said, hey, I've got new counsel coming in and I want the new counsel to take over the audit. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me because I'm your CCO and got this rapport with the SEC right now with this audit. Like, that's a huge red flag. Not like not sending me the financial documents or responding to the SEC audit and providing financial documents wasn't enough of a red flag. Then I got a call from the FBI. Yeah, that was a fun day. So while I'm on with the FBI, I'm on Teams, I'm pinging my paralegal and I'm like, hey, can you call this office of the FBI and confirm this person's name and contact, make sure it's legit? She messaged me back. It was legit. Legitimate. I think the current word is it was not sus, I think is the current lingo. So found out the owner of the firm was under FBI investigation for investment fraud. Well, that makes sense. Why I wasn't being given the financial statements. But I think this is a really good reason why compliance people should make sure they put eyeballs on financial documents because that's how you figure out the shit that's shady and is going sideways. So there you go, a little kind of benign side of the story and a little crazy shit show side of the story when it comes to financial statements.
That's so interesting. I just had a conversation with a client the other day about the difference between what you can do and what you should do. And, they aren't always the same. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, right? To your point, though, I think when you're unsure or you haven't laid eyes on something that you're responsible for, making sure that we're getting all of those things and making sure that you are looking is so important. I had a law school professor, an ethics professor, tell me once, you could get paid in guns if you want, but you shouldn't. You probably shouldn't. You can, but you probably shouldn't. And, it's funny how many people think, well, but I can do this, or I can, I don't have to do that. But should you? I think that's what it all comes down to. Even in this instance, the CEO, prior to their passing, should have had a discussion with you. They should have informed you of what was going on. The owner, did the CEO even know? We don't know. But I think it's all of that round robin that oftentimes when we think something sounds too good to be true or something doesn't, that's another thing the ethics professor all those years ago taught me. Does it pass the smells test? If it doesn't, there's probably shit on your shoe somewhere. And I mean, that's exactly how he explained it. He goes, if it doesn't pass the smells test, there's probably shit on your shoe from somewhere, and you need to figure out the source. And I think that's a lot of how we fix some of these things, are like digging in and figuring out what's really the thing behind the thing.
In this scenario too, the CEO was someone who actually had known the owner for many years. The former owner of that business knew this person for many years. They had common business contacts and relationships. So this isn't some random person out of left field that just came as a stranger and bought this business. This was a transaction essentially amongst people who had a history and knew each other and worked with people that they both knew. So this was between friendlies, right? This was a transaction that happened between friendlies, and this guy was committing fraud, investment fraud, or allegedly, right? Because the case is still pending. But I have an old college roommate that works for the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And she was telling me, like, a lot of times these incidents, these crimes are happening with people you know. They're more likely to happen with someone you know, a neighbor, a family member, than someone you don't know. And I think that, and don't quote me because I could be completely wrong, but I think that generally applies to most any crime. Usually it's someone that you know, and it's less likely someone that's a complete stranger. And that applied here, where this was someone that, these people had a reason to trust. But as I always say in compliance, it needs to be a trust but verify system. Even if it's been your business partner for 20 years, even if you've known them since you were a kid. We had a client who was sued by their childhood BFF of over, 20 years. Because he decided to leave a firm, and the friend was his supervisor and was getting additional compensation based on the AUM he was managing, and it pissed off the friend, and he filed a lawsuit against our client. That's someone he's known since he was a kid, right? Like, these things happen. So when we talk about trust but verify, even if it's someone you've known a long time, even if you know their kids, their grandkids, you're the godparent, we go to church together, trust, but verify.
Oh yeah, I've even seen it where it's family members, where it's like, my mom wouldn't do that, or my son wouldn't do that. And then it's like, you may have that bond and that relationship, but when the rubber meets the road, it's about protecting and making sure that you know what's actually going on. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to tolerate? What are you willing to put up with? And I think so often we think we surround ourselves with good people, or we surround ourselves with people we know, but money changes things, and success sometimes changes things, and so does failure. So can even be the shame of, I'm not doing what I thought I could do. And sometimes it honestly gets out of hand. I know I told you a story, I think last week. Before I was a lawyer in business, I was a banker many, many years ago, decades ago. And I remember, like every other bank out there, we changed hands multiple times. It was like, you just got those new checks, time to shred. But one of the times we changed hands, the same thing always happens. You have to, all of the different affiliated bank branches that we had, you have to do an audit of the branch. You have to make sure everything is accounted for, almost down to the pens, and those get legs and walk away. So anyway, there was somebody that was a wonderful, truly a wonderful person, that was kind and helpful and all of these things, the things that everybody would have given this person, and they did, glowing reviews and recommendations. And then lo and behold, we find out that there's money missing from the vault. And it was like, day one, I need gas money and we get paid on Friday, so I'm just going to take $20. Well, pretty soon it got to be like $5,000, and then it got to be more because they kept thinking they'd be able to put it back, and then it got to the point where they just couldn't. So they were covering it up and covering their tracks, and they were having other colleagues that really valued them, like, do things against the rules and not realize that they were part of it, covering it up. It was like, oh, we're both trying to get out of here tonight. Let's do this quick. and then they would just let them do something and yell out what it was, and they would mark it on the sheet, and it was all false. And so everybody in that branch was helping falsify information without knowing it, and was part of the crime. And it's just unfortunate that that happens, but the truth is that how well do you really know people? And when somebody's back is against the wall, or something, they have a monkey on their back that's hard to get rid of, or an addiction or something like that you might not even know about, maybe you aren't that important anymore, right? And so you're right, trust but verify. Now, I know you've also worked with other firms, and you've also worked in other businesses where I'm sure you have some real fun stories that you could share as well.
Oh my God. So many stories, and a lot of them completely insane. But I think this is why, I think it's important. It's not just about compliance, right? This is where, our podcast, we focus on compliance, but we inevitably talk about like HR and operations and some of these other things, because they do go hand in hand. To have a healthy culture of compliance, you have to have people who have a respect for your business's culture, who have a respect for each other and for you as the business owner, who maintain kind of minimum standards of behavior, who are, legitimately trying to follow the firm's policies and procedures, whether they show up in a compliance manual or an employee handbook. But my God, I've worked at some really toxic places. I had the owner of a firm once tell me that if I was working, I was only working for him, and that I would not spend any time outside of work on anything else because my time was his. So let's just say that did not last very long. This was the same place that tried to forge my signature on some attestations that as an attorney I would never sign. And they did a really shit job of forging my signature because it was nowhere even like close to how I sign things. And of course I asserted my rights and got law enforcement involved, and it went away. But I mean, that's the kind of bullshit I've dealt with. I've dealt with a firm I was working for who I was called in because the owner attempted suicide, and there needed to be an emergency shift in management and control. Well, spent a few months in Palo Alto, which Palo Alto is beautiful, living in a house with the CEO and the CFO and the COO. That was fun, being roommates with 3 grown men. And, finding out that the owner had faked it, found out the owner was committing investment fraud, finding out, for example, the health insurance hadn't been paid, so all these employees' health insurance was non-existent, and one of the employees had a child with cancer who was receiving cancer treatments. Found out that he had absconded with money from the operating account, found out that they had been evicted from their office space because he had not been paying rent. Found out all these things, and of course, all the employees are looking to the lawyer to tell them, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And, at that point, it's like, how did the team not know? I'd only been there at that point like a month when all this stuff started happening. And it's like, how did they not know? How were they not checking the bank accounts? How were they not additional signatures on these accounts? How are they not receiving the account statements? How are they not logged in? Like, Tracy, for example, you can log in to our healthcare provider anytime and make sure I'm paying our healthcare. You're another person who is an approved person on our payroll, on our health insurance, on our malpractice insurance, on all our cyber policies. You don't just take my word for it, even though we go way back. But there was no one verifying these things, to the point the owner threatened me, and in the secrecy of night, this is seriously like a soap opera story. One of their investors who lived in Palo Alto snuck me out of the house. I spent the night at the investor's house, and then the next morning took the first flight out because the owner, once I started questioning things and figuring things out, started threatening physical violence on me. And I had to take the first flight out the next day as soon as that threat happened. It was fucking nuts. It was crazy. But I also sat here as like the youngest member of the team. You know, I was in my 20s, wondering how the hell were these 40 and 50-year-old men who were in these leadership positions, how could they have been so naive? Why weren't they verifying this information? It was nuts. And when we talk about CCO liability, when we talk about executive liability, this is where it comes from. Should you have known? Did you have access to the data? Did you try to find out? Or did you just kind of say, monkey don't see, monkey don't hear, right? Like, you know, when we're talking about CCO liability especially, did you know and not do anything? Did you know and not try to talk to the right people to get the resources you need to resolve it? Did you just turn a blind eye? Did you participate in the cover-up? That's where liability comes up. It's one thing if you bring it up and you're not provided the resources and you're doing the best you can with the resources you have. But when you turn a blind eye, that is not a defense. And, you know, this crazy shit happens. Dude, the owner ran away to like Abu Dhabi or somewhere and ended up in a jail in the UAE last I heard. But he had committed investment fraud. Not necessarily through this firm that I was a member of, but there were other investment vehicles that he was managing where he had absconded with investor money. He had fake stock certificates, so people thought they owned interest in a stock that they didn't because he faked it. He gave them fake stock certificates. I mean, it's insane, the stuff this guy did. And I figured it out because I was sitting in his house, right? Because we all thought he had tried to kill himself. And I started going through mail and saw that he was receiving rent checks on behalf of a property he was managing. And he was keeping the checks and cashing them for himself. So if he's doing that at that level, what else is he doing over here in the business?
And I think it's interesting too. I know some of our stories seem like too good to be true. Like that seems like something we should get popcorn for and be waiting for the credits to roll. Unfortunately, they're all true. You know, I want to segue and talk a little bit. I had a firm that I was talking to, and they made, in my opinion, a very poor hiring decision. They had hired somebody, and the owner was telling me, you know, like making it out like this person walked on water. You know, they're just so amazing. They're a CFO. They've been doing this for decades. And gosh, the last firm they were at, they were there for like 12 or 13 years. And it was just amazing, all the stuff they did and all this stuff they're doing for us. And then I started scratching the surface and the whole wall crumbled. And it wasn't the Wizard of Oz behind it, unfortunately. It was this person that they had hired. And it was almost like a Jekyll and Hyde, because then I started asking questions, just rudimentary questions. I wasn't even like trying to be Sherlock Holmes at this point. I was just like, I just have a few like baseline questions. And in 5 minutes, I was able to unearth that although this person held like a CPA license and all this stuff, he had never acted as one. And the firm that he had been at before for like a decade and a half, the wife actually was doing it. And so he was in title only. And what he was doing for the current firm, when I started looking at things, he wasn't properly handling the books. And then on top of it, he also made it so the owner had to pay over almost $400,000 extra in taxes. And so it was just one of those situations where it's like, it's not just harming potentially, you know, what's happening with clients, because the business decisions you're making are on fraudulent records. And so some of the things that you could have done to better support your clients or better support your team, you were choosing not to do because of the way the books looked, but the books weren't even correct. You know, it was also harming the owner's family, because what they were able to take out of the business, or what they were able to do, or the way they were able to grow, or the amount of hours they were spending, was impacting home life. And then it resulted in a messy divorce. And now comes the forensic accountant. And I'm not even going to go any further because, I mean, it was just horrendous, right? Like what was found was a lot that hadn't been done and a lot of misstatements. And now we have to recreate the wheel and we have to go back a long period of time and try to figure out where we actually are, what you did do, what you didn't do, what you owe perhaps the government or what you don't, what you owe others. I mean, it became like a nightmare. And a lot of it was the result of a truly bad hire. And the reason I bring this up is our next episode is going to be on hiring and the impacts, both positively and negatively, on not only your current culture in your business, but your client base, on your livelihood, on your family. And so, you know, if these horror stories are resonating with you, make sure you tune in to our next episode and really hear how you can ensure some of this stuff doesn't happen, or at least protect yourself as much as possible. And also reach out to us if you think that you might be involved in something that you need help either unwinding, mitigating, remedying. We're happy to help. We're here to assist. www.myralawyer.com. Fill out a form. Let us know what's going on. Set up a legal consultation if it's that way. Set up a compliance consultation if it's like, this is scaring me. I need to get my ducks in a row. You know who you are. Most of us know, or we have that feeling, you know, like something is about to happen. And we know that something is amiss, even if we're not sure what it is. Reach out. We're happy to help. And always follow our podcast on Regulate This, right? Find us on Spotify, find us on Apple, find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We also have, you know, hundreds of YouTube episodes that could help you in your compliance. We have Compliance University to help you build a foundation. There's so much out there, you know, and quite honestly, we're not the only game in town. We're just one of the best. So, you know, pick your poison, but I think it's very important to ensure that you have the right people in the right seats on the bus, and that includes all of your vendors and people outside, because they can really impact you as well. And if you abdicate rather than trusting but verifying, you're complicit.
No, if you take nothing else from today's episode, take this. You as the business owner are ultimately responsible. Good or bad, you are responsible. Whether that means financially, legally, from a fiduciary standpoint, you are ultimately responsible. So do not dig a hole and stick your head in it, because that is not a valid defense.
Well, thank you, Leila, for sharing all of your tales of woe that other people can learn from. I mean, it's super important. If you don't hear something like that, sometimes you think it could happen to everybody else but you, and then you realize, hey, your best friend is only your best friend as long as it serves them sometimes. Or your parent or your child can get in situations where it can impact you, or just an employee can. Or sometimes it's the clients, you know, you think you're doing the right thing and you find out you've been helping them do the wrong thing. So, you know, keep your head on a swivel. Don't worry, the world isn't filled with just horrible people. There are lots of good people out there that want to interact and help. But it's up to you. It's incumbent upon you to make sure you're choosing the right people to surround yourself with. My husband says it best, and he's a teacher. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. With that, we're signing off on this episode, but tune in next time so that we can help you navigate the complexities of the HR spin cycle. It's very important. It's very important